In the bustling marketplaces of ancient Rome, among senators plotting in marble halls and soldiers preparing for distant campaigns, a quiet revolution was taking place, not one of swords or political intrigue, but of the mind. Stoicism, born in Athens around 300 BCE and perfected in imperial Rome, offered something radical for its time. The promise that any person, regardless of station, could achieve complete mastery over their emotional world. The founder, Zeno of Scythium, taught from a painted porch called the Stoa porch. His message was simple, yet profound. We cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. This wasn't mere philosophy for debate holes. It was a practical system designed for real life, for the merchant facing bankruptcy, the soldier facing death, the slave facing cruelty. What the Stoics understood, and what modern neuroscience has only recently confirmed, is that anger operates in two distinct phases. The first is biological, automatic. When provoked, your body floods with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate spikes. Your muscles tense. These responses evolved over millions of years, prepares you for threat. But here's what matters. This physiological surge lasts approximately 90 seconds. Just 90 seconds. Everything that comes after, the rumination, the rehearsal of arguments, the fantasies of revenge, that's not biology. That's choice. The Stoics recognized this gap between stimulus and response as the most important space in human experience. Epictetus, who spent his youth as a slave before becoming one of Rome's most influential teachers, put it plainly: people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. Consider Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome at its height, commanding legions, managing an empire that stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia. His private writings, never meant for publication, reveal a man constantly reminding himself of these principles. When you wake up in the morning, he wrote to himself, expect to meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, violent, treacherous, envious. They are like this because they cannot distinguish good from evil. This wasn't pessimism. It was preparation. By expecting difficulty, by understanding that people act according to their nature and circumstances, Marcus freed himself from the trap of disappointment. He wasn't shocked when senators schemed or generals disobeyed. He had already accepted the reality of human behavior. The Stoic approach to anger rested on a fundamental insight about human psychology. Most anger is not about the present moment at all. It's about meaning, about interpretation, about old wounds being touched. When someone disrespects you, the Stoics would ask, what exactly has been taken from you? Your body remains intact. Your capacity to think clearly is undiminished. Nothing of substance has changed, except your judgment about what occurred. Seneca, the wealthy senator and advisor to Emperor Nero, wrote extensively on anger. He called it temporary madness, noting how people who moments before were composed would, in rage, say and do things that permanently damaged their lives. The greatest remedy for anger, he taught, is delay. Not suppression, not denial, but simple postponement. Give space between the provocation and your response. This delay creates what Viktor Frankl, surviving the horrors of Auschwitz nearly 2 millennia later, would call the last of human freedoms. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. The Stoics had discovered this truth through philosophical inquiry. Frankl discovered it through unimaginable suffering, but the principle remained the same. The ancient Stoics also understood something modern psychology calls cognitive reflection. They taught that events themselves are neutral. An insult is just sound waves, letters on paper. It only becomes an insult when you interpret it as such. This wasn't about denying reality or becoming emotionally numb. It was about precision in judgment, about seeing things clearly without the distortion of ego and assumption. Their training was rigorous and practical. Every morning, visualize difficulties you might face. Practice responding to imagined provocations with calm. When someone does wrong, consider what beliefs or circumstances led them to act that way. Not to excuse them, but to understand them as you would understand a natural phenomenon, a storm, an earthquake, something that simply is. The transition from understanding Stoic principles to embodying them required what the Romans called ascesis, rigorous training. This wasn't abstract meditation. It was daily practice in the arena of real life, and history provides us remarkable examples of how this philosophy transformed individuals under extraordinary pressure. When Epictetus was a slave, his master once twisted his leg for amusement. Epictetus calmly said, "You're going to break it." When the master continued and the leg snapped, Epictetus simply noted, "I told you that you would break it." No rage, no pleading, just observation. Years later, freed in teaching, he would tell his students that the leg incident taught him more about freedom than his later liberation, because true freedom, he realized, existed regardless of external circumstances. The Stoic method for handling provocations followed a clear sequence. First, recognize the physiological response. Your chest tightens, heat rises, thoughts race. Don't fight this. It's automatic, beyond your immediate control. Second, pause. Count your breaths. Seneca recommended literally leaving the room if possible. Create physical and temporal distance from the trigger. Third, examine your interpretation. What story are you telling yourself about what just happened? Is it the only possible interpretation? Marcus Aurelius, dealing with betrayals and setbacks throughout his reign, practiced a technique he called turning obstacles upside down. When something opposed his plans, he would immediately ask how this obstacle could become an opportunity. A dishonest advisor revealed the need for better systems. A military defeat exposed weaknesses in strategy. Everything could be reframed as material for growth. Historical accounts show this wasn't mere theory. During the Marcomannic Wars, facing barbarian invasions and a plague devastating his armies, Marcus maintained such composure that his officers drew strength from his presence. While others panicked or blamed, he focused on what could be controlled. Troop movements, supply lines, tactical decisions. The Stoics also taught preemptive reflection on mortality, what they called memento mori. Remember, you will die. This wasn't morbid. It was liberating. When you truly internalize that you and everyone you know will someday be gone, that empires fall and civilizations crumble, the insult someone gave you this morning shrinks to its proper size. Cosmic insignificancer. Cato the Younger, renowned for his incorruptible character, practiced voluntary discomfort to strengthen his mind. He walked barefoot through Rome, wore simple clothing in winter, ate plain food. When mocked for this, he remained unmoved. He was training himself not to need comfort, not to fear discomfort, and therefore not to be controlled by either. The Stoic understanding of anger's true nature was sophisticated. They recognized it as what we now call a secondary emotion, a cover for something more vulnerable underneath. Fear of being disrespected, pain from old wounds, anxiety about losing control. By investigating beneath the anger, you discover its roots. And roots, once exposed, lose their power. This required brutal honesty with oneself. Marcus wrote, "When another person wrongs you, ask what mistaken notion of good and evil caused them to act that way. Once you understand this, you'll feel pity rather than anger. You'll see they acted from ignorance, not malice." This perspective doesn't excuse wrongdoing. It simply removes the emotional charge that clouds judgment. The ultimate Stoic goal was apatheia, not apathy in the modern sense, but freedom from destructive passions. A mind so clear, so aligned with reason, that external events couldn't destabilize it. Not because you don't care, but because you care about the right things in the right proportion. Historical evidence suggests this actually worked. The Stoic philosophers weren't isolated ascetics. They were active in politics, business, warfare. Their philosophy was tested in the crucible of real Roman life, with all its violence, corruption, and chaos. And those who practiced it consistently gained a reputation for extraordinary composure. The lesson they leave us transcends time. You cannot control other people. You cannot control circumstances. But you can develop such mastery over your own mind that no external force can truly disturb your peace. Not through suppression or denial, but through understanding, practice, and the daily choice to respond from principle rather than impulse. This is not easy. It requires the same dedication a warrior gives to mastering the sword. But unlike physical strength, which fades with age, this inner strength only grows. Each time you pause instead of react, each time you choose clarity over chaos, you become a little more unshakable. And in a world that constantly seeks to disturb your peace, that is perhaps the most valuable skill of all.